And welcome back to another episode of The Bull and the Bear here on moneyandmarkets.com. I am Matt Clark. Glad you're with us today. Rainy here in South Florida, but I guess it's a small price to pay. It's rainy every June, as anyone who has been to Florida will attest to, but that's okay. We'll get by. I followed Charles's example last week and got a haircut because I was feeling bad, so I just had to get it done. So
sometimes you just got to risk it.
Yeah, I know. And it was fine, and it was well worth it. But nonetheless, regardless, back on track. Just to remind everyone that our podcast is not only on YouTube, but we are also on Apple Podcasts. We are on Google Podcasts. We're on Spotify and a wealth of other syndication channels. So you can pick us up anywhere you like. And we encourage you to do so, and make sure you leave us a review. Have any questions, any comments, any concerns, anything you'd like us to tackle, by all means, let us know, because we like that kind of feedback, and we like to address those kind of topics. We want to know what you guys want to hear. So you're going to jump right into the shortened podcast today. Joining me is Money Markets contributor Charles Sizemore. Charles, welcome back. How are you? Doing just fine. Thanks for having me. Absolutely. It's good to have you. But today's topic, pretty timely, I think. It's timely and it's timeless in that we're going to focus today on retirement. It's something that I think no matter what age you are, whether you are already there or whether you're in your 20s or like me in your 40s or like Charles in his teens, at least the way he looks. That was a compliment, by the way. Retirement is always on your mind in some form or fashion.
And I did get carded at the grocery store buying beer the other day, so I was rather flattered. Been a while since that's happened.
Did you thank the cashier for carding you?
I did.
That's the appropriate thing you should do, is make sure you thank them for realizing that you don't look nearly as old as you may be. So that's good. I like that. I do it as well when it happens, which is rare. So, but anyway, to get back on point here, retirement, like I said, it's something that should be on the minds of every investor, of everybody, really, regardless of the economic situation, regardless of the market, regardless of your station or where you're at in life. Having retirement should always be some kind of a thought, whether it's at the forward of your mind or at the back of your mind. You always need to be thinking about, okay, what am I going to do when I retire? And for some, it's very simple. I work for a company. I've worked for them for a couple of years, and they have a 401k. They match, and I put some money in, and I'm good. But lately, the economic situation that we have with unemployment up around 15%, possibly even going higher than that, we have a lot of people that don't have that kind of security anymore, or at least temporarily don't have that kind of security. And I think it creates a lot of wonder in terms of, what should I be doing retirement-wise? I want to save. I want to make sure that I can live fairly comfortably. I want to retire. I want to move somewhere. I want to travel the world. Whatever your end goal in life is for retirement, you need to be thinking of, okay, how am I going to get there? And like I said, for some, 401k is the way to go. Other people do other things, whether they save money in a bank account, whether they have an individual retirement account of their own, whatever the case may be. Today, I kind of want to focus a little bit heavier on the Roth IRA. And I think that it draws a little bit of confusion in terms of exactly what it is. What does it mean to have a Roth IRA? And is this something that, even if I may have a traditional 401k, is a Roth IRA something I should be looking at? And Charles, luckily, has a lot of expertise in that, not because he's retired, but because he's worked a lot in that field. So that's why I wanted to bring him on and talk about retirement in terms of the Roth IRA. And what people should be thinking about in terms of whether a Roth IRA is a good idea or whether it's something to hold off on. And I guess first, the basics. Charles, explain to me in very simple terms what a Roth IRA is.
Sure. Well, to start, it was named after the late Senator Roth, who wanted to tweak the existing retirement, what you want to call it, infrastructure, I suppose. The IRA, the individual retirement account, has been around for decades. And the way those work is to incentivize the average American to save more for retirement. Congress created a tax break. You put money into the IRA, you get that reduces your income that is subject to tax for that year. So if you're in, just make this up, if you're in a 25% tax bracket, you put money into that IRA, you've effectively, made 25% that year on the tax break. Now that's of course irrespective of what you invest in. I mean, you're going to make investment returns as well, but it's you get that tax break regardless. There's no free lunch. You end up paying those taxes in retirement. So the way this works is you get that tax break today when you put the money in. The dividends, interest, capital gains, all your returns grow tax free until retirement. Once you hit retirement, you then take the money out, and it's taxed as taxed as ordinary income. Now, you actually are required to start taking it out once you hit the age 70 and a half. Now, don't you love that? It sounds like a toddler. Like, I'm not 2 years old, I'm 2.5.
Right.
Like they're always proud of that half year. Congress, in their wisdom, somehow said 70 and a half, not 70, not 71, not 75, not a number that would make sense. It was 70 and a half.
70 in 6 months, which I don't know what the 6 months does. I don't know what the rationale, I'm sure there is some sort of rationale behind it. It probably doesn't make any sense, but.
Well, I promise you it was something like Senator X said, I want it to be 70. And Senator Y said, no, it's going to be 71. And they probably argued about it for 3 days, and then they compromised at 70 and a half. I'm sure it was something that ridiculous.
Right.
We may never know.
That makes sense.
But yeah, that's how the traditional IRA works. You get the tax break today. You end up paying for it down the road when presumably you're retired, you're in a lower tax bracket than anyway. You need the money in retirement, so it's fine to start taking it out then. Well, Senator Roth had an idea of, well, what if we incentivize people to save in a different way? We'll have the Roth IRA where you don't get the tax break today. You put the money in the account. You get no current year tax break, but just like the regular IRA, all of your dividends, interest, capital gains, all that grows tax-free. The catch is, if or when you take it out in retirement, you're not taxed on it then. So you can take distributions in retirement, not pay a nickel of taxes. And where it gets even more interesting is it's not subject to those required minimum distributions. You don't have to start taking money out of your Roth IRA at age 70 and a half. You can just let it sit in there forever and give it to your heirs if you want. So the Roth IRA is nice for that reason. If you want to use it more for estate planning or what have you, you're not required to take distributions out. This also makes sense for people that maybe their income is relatively modest today. So let's say you're fresh out of college, you're not really making a lot of money. Is that current year tax break you get on a traditional IRA, is that even really worth that much? If you're in a 10% tax bracket, who cares? I mean, you're not really getting that tax break is relatively modest. If you're a high tax bracket investor, you're in that 37% bracket, what have you, 35, those top brackets, then that current year tax break, it matters. I mean, that's money in the bank for you. So, the choice of, which of these makes more sense for me? I'm confused. Should I go Roth? Should I go traditional? Part of it just comes down to income. I mean, if your income is modest, either just because you're starting your career, or maybe you're not making much money this year, what have you, that current year tax break's not worth that much. The Roth makes sense. Get that tax break in retirement. Get it down the road. But if you're making, if you have a high income today, or you and your spouse have a high income, then you're thinking, well, what's the Roth going to do for me? I mean, I need the tax break now.
Right.
So that's probably the single biggest factor in which do you choose? Do you go the Roth route or the traditional route? It really comes down to current year income. Though I would say secondary considerations would be estate planning and stuff like that.
And I think that comes in nicely to the current situation that we're in now in the economy, is that we've got 14.6% unemployment. People have been laid off. They've been furloughed. More possibly on the way. Like I said, projections are possibly 20% unemployment.
This isn't over yet. Yeah.
And so now you have a lot of people that did have a stable form of income that was, high, low, whatever it happened to be. And now that is gone. Now you're looking at strictly unemployment or maybe a part-time thing or whatever. But anyway, in most of those situations, the income that you made before is definitely higher than what you are at now. So it brings about an interesting question for people that are unemployed or have seen the economic strain of the current situation that we're in. Does it make sense now to look at something like a conversion, to take money out of a 401k or out of a traditional IRA that you were using to, get the tax break now and then pay the taxes later, to convert that into a Roth and flip that as it were, because the expectation is that you have lower income now, you're in a lower bracket, that that tax break that you get really doesn't mean a whole lot. And you're not necessarily concerned with trying to bank that money now. So does it make sense for people who have those traditional IRAs and those 401ks and things like that, who have suffered, financially due to the economic crisis that we're in and the upcoming recession? Does it make sense for them to make that transition now?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple layers there that are good. There's two ways money can get into a Roth. You can either contribute it, you take it out of your current income and you contribute based on the restrictions there, or you can convert an existing traditional IRA into a Roth. Now, one of the problems with the first option, just putting new money into the Roth and into a new Roth, is there are income limitations. So if you're an individual taxpayer and you're making more than $124,000 a year in modified adjusted gross income, we don't need to get into the nitty gritty of what exactly that means. But let's just say your income is
you're making six figures. You're making high five figures.
Or if you're married with your spouse and you filed jointly, married with your spouse, well, that's actually a very redundant term. If you're married and with your spouse you file jointly, and your joint income is close to $200,000, starts to get phased out about $196,000. Your ability to contribute to a Roth IRA starts to get phased out. For whatever reason, Congress doesn't like higher income people contributing to a Roth. I think it's a way of getting you, like, you may make a lot of money, but we're going to take away this one little benefit from you.
It's like 70 and a half.
Yeah, like 70 and a half. It's a bit arbitrary. But where it gets interesting is there is a huge loophole. And that's that while you can't contribute to a Roth IRA if your income is above certain thresholds, there's nothing to stop you from converting an existing traditional IRA or 401k into a Roth. Now, the issue with that is, think about it. When you put money into your traditional IRA every year, you were getting tax breaks along the way. Every contribution came with a tax break. You essentially have to give all that back when you convert. Like, you have to pay back all those tax breaks you got. Now, of course, you're getting that new tax break on the back end. So, but you always have to do that calculus of, that's going to be a nasty tax bill this year if I convert. If I have, whatever, 100,000, 200,000, $1 million, what if you have some large amount of money in your IRA and you convert that to a Roth, you're going to get a big, nasty tax bill that tax year. It might be worth it for the long-term benefit, but it still stings the year you do it. Well, that's where a good crisis actually comes in handy. Right now, a lot of people's incomes are temporarily depressed. Perhaps you've been laid off. Perhaps you're a business owner and your profits are just down. A lot are this year, of course. But let's say you have enough in savings to tide you over, so you're not worried about financial stability. It's just you're taking a bath this year. Next year will be better. Well, if you're going to be in a lower tax bracket than usual, then a year like this could be a good opportunity to do a conversion. Like, this could be one of those once every decade events where you can do that conversion and take that, get that long-term benefit, and it's going to be a little bit less painful. And it's potentially less painful in two ways. For one, perhaps your IRA is still down. The market has really ripped higher since March, but not everything has. If your portfolio is heavy in energy stocks or really anything other than tech, you're probably still sitting on 20% or more losses. Well, if your portfolio is 20% lower than it was a few months ago, that's a lower dollar amount to roll over into, not roll over is the wrong word, to convert into a Roth. That means right there, you're getting less of a tax bill. If on top of that, your income from your job or your business is also lower, you may also be in a lower bracket. So this is one of those years where if you've ever thought about doing a Roth conversion, this is probably going to be your best chance for a while.
And it certainly depends, like you said, on the economic situation that you're in. So, to put a finer point on this, if you see yourself in as you put it, a depressed economic situation, regardless of whether you were laid off, furloughed, whether you're a business owner, whether you're, whatever the case may be, if you see yourself in a lower tax bracket because you're just not making as much for whatever reason, then taking advantage of the tax, I don't want to say loophole, but taking advantage of the tax situation.
It is a loophole. I mean, the conversion is very much a loophole, and it's not like dirty or dot. I mean, there's nothing. It's out in the open. I mean, it's right. Available for anyone to take advantage of. But make no mistake, it is a loophole.
Right. And so if you see yourself in that situation, then looking into a Roth conversion to take your traditional 401k or your traditional IRA and converting that into a Roth so that you're not penalized as heavily tax-wise now as you would be under normal economic situations where you are making good money, your business is thriving, you are seeing good returns in the market, whatever that happens to be, with your tax being lower now is a good time to really make that consideration to change things over. And that, if I understand right, that's what you're saying, yes?
Yeah, I mean, play with the numbers. I mean, paying taxes at let's say your bracket is temporarily depressed to let's say you're in the 10% bracket. Let's just make that up. That's obviously a lot less painful. As let's say you have a $100,000 IRA and you're now in the 10% bracket. Well, you're paying $10,000 in taxes on that conversion. If that same $100,000 IRA, but you're in a 30% bracket, well, you're paying $30,000 in taxes on that. Now, obviously, we just made those numbers up, but that illustrates if you're in a lower bracket temporarily, this would be the time to do that conversion. You're going to pay a lot less, and it's a one-time deal. It's done. Once it's done, it's done. Now, I would say there's one huge flashing red light caveat on that. You shouldn't do anything on this if you're going to create a huge tax bill that you're going to have a hard time paying next year. So let's say, oh, great, awesome. I mean, I'm going to pay less in taxes if I do this conversion than I would normally. Yeah, sure. Let's say your tax bill is going to be $10,000 instead of $30,000, or $30,000 instead of $100,000. Whatever. It may be lower, but obviously make sure you have cash on hand to pay that tax bill come next year when taxes are due. You don't want to get yourself into a mess where you look at your tax return and you're like, oh boy, I wasn't planning for this. That seemed like a good idea until I get the tax bill. So you do need some good visibility. Either you need regular, good old-fashioned taxable cash in your checking account to cover that, or you need to be very confident that your business or job will be back to full speed next year, and you'll be able to pay it. So
yeah, what it comes down to is you just have to understand your situation and do the best you can to think about what your future is going to look like in the next 12 months. Which I know is uncertain. There's no guarantees in life except for obviously death and taxes. But you at least have to be cognizant of where things could be and fairly confident that you can handle that tax bill when it comes. Because the tax man is going to come and collect regardless of how you play it. It's just can you pay the bill?
The tax man and the Grim Reaper are two people that will visit you.
That is true. One last thing I want to touch on just real briefly, and I found this to be interesting. It sounds very seedy, but it actually makes a lot of sense. And I want you to talk a little bit about the backdoor IRA, Roth contribution.
Oh, yeah. So this is where it gets fun. So if you're not eligible, okay, so we talked about regular good old-fashioned Roth contribution. And then we talked about the conversion option. Well, there's actually a way you kind of do both. So let's say, let me back up for a second. If you have a 401k or other traditional employer-sponsored retirement plan at work, you can't make a contribution to an IRA, a traditional IRA. Or more accurately, you just can't write it off. your ability to deduct that on your taxes goes away if you have access to an employer plan. Why? I don't know, but that's the tax law. So if you already have a 401k at work and you want to also, if you're maxing that out and you want to top that off with a good old fashioned just IRA contribution, well, you can open an IRA and you can contribute to it and still get all the tax-free dividends and interest and all that, but you're not getting a current year deduction. Well, if you're not getting that current year deduction, that's where you can have some fun, because you can create that account. You can contribute to a traditional IRA, and then you can immediately convert that to a Roth. So it's just like, it's as if you had just opened a Roth IRA and funded it, except you have that intermediary step. That's why we call it a backdoor Roth IRA. You open a traditional IRA, you fund it, then you immediately convert. So that would be really useful for someone who can't normally contribute to an IRA. A Roth IRA. Someone who can't normally contribute to a Roth IRA because their income's too high. So let's say, you max out your 401k, that's all going as it should, but you really want to do a Roth IRA also. You just make too much money. Well, you can make that non-deductible traditional IRA contribution, convert it to a Roth, and you have accomplished the same thing. There is one thing that you should talk to a CPA about or do some research on. I don't want to get you in trouble. I'm throwing out some ideas, but you do have to do your own homework on some of this. If you have other IRA accounts, there's something called a pro rata rule, where your ability to do that backdoor Roth conversion, you have to do a little math and figure out how much of your existing IRAs are able to make that transition and how much tax should be liable for. So that is something to keep in mind. But as a general rule, like let's say you have a clean slate, you have your 401k, and you don't have any other IRAs or anything, you want to start a Roth. That backdoor option is fantastic.
And so the bottom line here is, regardless of what you're looking at for your retirement, regardless of what your planning is for your retirement or what you want to do in retirement, now is a good time to start really evaluating your options and looking at what is potentially out there, what can you take advantage of, and what provides the best situation for you. Is it a traditional? Is it a 401k? Is it a Roth? Is it a combination? Is it, and then drill down even deeper and do research on what the best approach is to make that happen. Because at the end of the day, you want to live comfortably, or at least as comfortably as possible in retirement. You don't want it to be a situation where you have to work into your 70s or 80s. Nobody wants to do that. I mean, some people do.
Or eat cat food.
Yeah, exactly. or you're eating college style for
ramen noodles 3 days a week. Yeah,
ramen and mac and cheese, which actually doesn't sound bad, but not something you want to live off of in retirement.
No, you reminisce about that and you romanticize it, and then you try it one night and you're like, yeah, I don't miss college.
No, exactly. So, but the thing here is that be smart, do your homework. If you need to talk to a professional, do so. There's not, there's no reason not to. You don't have to go at it alone. You don't have to, try to make all these decisions on your own. Get the most information you possibly can from the most resources you can find, and then make your decision based on what you think is best for your situation. And that way you can maximize your retirement. You can live comfortably, or at least as comfortable as possible in your retirement, without additional headaches that can and do creep up whenever you do get to that stage. So, Charles, I appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on. We're going to have you back on Friday.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Friday we'll have Charles, myself, Adam Odell. We've got some great topics we're going to talk to you about then. So make sure you prepare for that. Podcast will drop sometime Friday afternoon. You can check out all of our podcasts. You can get us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Check out our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and do a search for the Bull and the Bear podcast, and you can find video of all of our podcasts there as well. So there's a lot of ways you can find us. Make sure you email us, thebullandbear@moneyandmarkets.com, and more than happy to take your questions, listen to what you have to say. Let us know if there's a topic you want us to cover. We would love to do that. So it's thebullandbear@moneyandmarkets.com. And I think that's a good exclamation to this podcast. Charles, I appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again on Friday. For Charles Sizemore, I am Matt Clark. You've been listening to the Bull and Bear podcast right here on